You know, I like to think that Jakobs weapons are pretty simple to understand. They deal high damage per shot, have a built-in crit bonus, are never elemental aside from maybe some legendary or unique ones. Well, it turns out Jakobs Shotguns are not so simple because there are a number of hidden bonuses on a lot of their parts. I felt like Isaac Newton while trying to figure out how all of these parts work. So get ready for a lesson in calculus because we're going to be taking a look at every single part that can spawn on a non-unique or a non-legendary Jakobs Shotgun. And we're going to start off with the magazines because there's a certain one that has a pretty big influence on your gun. But before that one, we have two others. The first magazine will be the 6-round magazine, and this one will increase your damage by 10%. It will also have a base reload speed of 1.2 seconds, at least on the gun card. In reality, it will depend on how many shots you fired before you reload, because you reload your shots one at a time with this magazine. The second magazine will be the 8-round magazine. This magazine will have no effect on your damage and will set your base reload speed to 2.7 seconds. The third magazine is the interesting one. It's essentially a one-shot magazine. Now there's only one part that can change this, which we'll see when we look at the barrels, but assuming you have no other accessories, it will give you one shot. On top of this though, there are hidden damage and fire rate bonuses that come with this part. This mag will provide a 20% damage increase, and will increase your fire rate by 33%, based on what's shown on the gun card. It will also set your base reload speed to 1.5 seconds. Now we'll move on to the barrels and we'll see what they do along with their impact on the one-shot magazine. The barrels will provide each shotgun with its base name, and each will spawn with 3 unique accessories. The barrels are the Longrider, the Scattergun, and the Stagecoach. We're going to start off with the Longrider. The Longrider will have the lowest damage per projectile and a base projectile count of 7. With all of its accessories, the Longrider will deal the least amount of damage of the 3 barrels, but will have the highest accuracy. This is what the Longrider barrel looks like. As for the accessories, the first one will provide a 7.5% accuracy bonus. The second one here will do the exact same thing. And the third will be a melee attachment that will increase your melee damage by 60% and your damage by 10%. If you get a one-shot magazine on your Longrider, it will always consume 1 ammo per shot. The next barrel we'll look at will be the Scattergun. The Scattergun will be tied for the highest base damage per projectile, and has the same base projectile count as the Longrider at 7. Here's what the Scattergun barrel looks like. With a one-shot magazine, the Scattergun will always consume 1 ammo per shot, but the way the magazine works will change with a certain accessory, and we'll take a look at the accessories now. The first accessory for this will be a melee attachment that will increase your melee damage by 60% and increase your fire rate by 10%. The second will increase your projectiles per shot by 35%, but in return you will receive a 15% accuracy bloom penalty, a 10% accuracy penalty, and a 5% damage penalty. The last accessory does not have any listed modifiers, but it will provide a second barrel. Now this will change a couple of things. First, it will increase your fire rate by 285%. This number is just coming from the gun card. In reality, you're still going to have some downtime when you're going through the pump animation. But the other thing it does is that instead of firing one shot in pumping, you can fire 2 quick shots in succession before the pump, one coming from each barrel. So it is effectively a fire rate increase. With this accessory, the one-shot magazine will give you 2 shots that each consume 1 ammo instead of firing just 1 shot, so you'll see a mag size of 2 on these Scatterguns. The Stagecoach will be the final barrel. This one will have about the same base damage per projectile as the Scattergun, but it has the highest base pellet count at 8. This is the Stagecoach Barrel here. It's a double-barrel shotgun that will consume 2 ammo per shot. The first accessory for it will provide you with a 10% damage increase. The second accessory will decrease your reload time by 10%. Here's a better view of this part from over the top of the gun. The third accessory will do a whole lot. It will decrease your reload time by 10% and increase your projectiles per shot by 50%, both of which come at a cost of a 10% accuracy penalty, a 20% damage penalty, which is really 25%, not 20, I've checked, and an accuracy bloom penalty of 20%. If you get this accessory, you will consume 3 ammo per shot, and the one-shot mag will have a size of 3 instead of 2 for Stagecoaches without this accessory. That's it for the barrels, and now we'll move on to the triggers. The first will increase your critical hit damage by 10%. The second will increase your damage by 10%. And the third one will decrease your reload time by 10%. Now these look simple enough, but it turns out that there are some hidden fire rate modifiers here. If we look at the damage trigger, we'll say that this is your base fire rate. If you compare this one and the reload trigger will give you about a 21.5% fire rate increase. Then looking at the crit trigger, The crit trigger will give you a 25% fire rate increase over the reload trigger, and about a 52% fire rate increase over the damage trigger. Now we'll move on to the bolts. There are 5 different ones you can get. The first will provide a 7.5% accuracy bonus. The second will increase your critical damage by 10%. The third one will increase your damage by 10%. The fourth one will increase your projectiles per shot by 35%, but in return you will receive a 15% accuracy bloom penalty, a 10% accuracy penalty, and a 5% damage penalty. And the last bolt will decrease your reload time by 10%. Then we come to the 5 different foregrips. The first one will increase your projectiles per shot by 15%, but this comes at a cost of a 15% accuracy bloom penalty, a 4.5% accuracy penalty, and a 5% damage penalty. The second will decrease your recoil height by 30% and increase your critical damage by 10%. The third one will decrease your recoil width by 15% and increase your fire rate by 5%. The fourth will decrease your weapon sway by 30% and increase your damage by 5%. And the last one will decrease both your weapon sway and recoil height by 30%. Next, we're going to take a look at the 5 stocks. Each stock will be able to spawn with one unique accessory. The first stock will decrease your recoil width by 30% and give you a 10% accuracy bonus. The accessory for this one will decrease your recoil height by 25%. The second stock will decrease your recoil width by 30% and increase your critical damage by 10%. This one's accessory will increase your damage by 10%. The third stock will decrease your recoil width by 30% and decrease your recoil height by 15%. The accessory for this stock will decrease your reload time by 10%. The fourth stock will decrease your weapon sway by 30% and increase your damage by 5%. Now this is the one you want if you're trying to maximize your projectile count, because the accessory for this one will give you an additional 35% projectiles per shot. This will come at a cost of a 15% accuracy bloom penalty, a 10% accuracy penalty, and a 5% damage penalty. And then the last stock will decrease your weapon sway by 30% and decrease your reload time by 5%. The accessory for this one will provide a 7.5% accuracy bonus. Now we arrive at the scopes. Jakobs Shotguns can spawn with 3 different ones. The first one will increase your zoom by 1.5 times. The second will increase it by 2.2 times. And the third one will increase it by 3.5 times. There is a chance your gun spawns with no scope, in which case you will just have the iron sights. So to help with all these parts, I've put together this table with everything listed that we've covered here. This and information for other parts can be found in the spreadsheet linked below in the description. That's it for Jakobs Shotguns, guys. See ya.